everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is Diaspora Doodles, and I always serve you fact and not fiction about getting into teaching. You all know why I set up this channel, to sort of encourage people who look like me to go into schools, help out, give the children that boost, give the children that encouragement so that they can see people who look like them in schools, so that it will encourage them to get to the finish line where we want them to be. Today, I'm with an esteemed recruiter, and I first met her when I went to register with her to be like a supply teacher. And yeah, I enjoyed the time we spent together. I enjoyed the interview process. I enjoyed everything about being in their office. It was so welcoming, so comforting. They were able to explain things to me, and I enjoyed it. And today, I'm not gatekeeping. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and so that you can either reach out to her or learn a few things from her. So, thank you, Rachel, for coming on. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, of course. I'm Rachel Smith. I'm the primary school teacher, recruitment consultant for certain areas in the Northwest. So I personally work with Blackpool, Preston and Blackburn area, sort of East Lancs as well. And I recruit teachers and teaching assistants to work in primary schools. Before I started this 2 years ago, I was I am a primary school teacher myself, but I was teaching, and I also started on supply. So I qualified, didn't have a role straight away, so went straight into supply, and ended up doing two very long-term roles that lasted 2 years each, through the supply, and then went directly through the school. So, I know myself that going through supply is always a good start, especially if you're actually at the beginning, because you get to see different schools, what it's like in different schools. Obviously, the atmosphere in different schools can be very different from each other. And not only that, you get to see which schools you want to work for, and then the schools also, then if they like you, they will ask for you to come back over somebody else. So it's a really good way to get yourself into the school as a teacher or as a teaching assistant.
Super. Thank you so much for that introduction, Rachel. And I really enjoyed our time together when I came into the office to meet with you. I mean, obviously, you made me feel so comfortable because you explained your pathway to me, and I just felt like, yeah, this person understands what I will be going through, because coming out of this country, the UK especially, there's so many things that you don't understand, and going through that pathway helps you understand and absorb all the knowledge, the pedagogy, everything that you need to put in place. And because you'll be around like-minded professionals, they will always mentor you. So it's not like an informal mentoring when you go through that pathway. So thank you so much for that. So when my audience, which is full of teachers who want to work in the UK, when they come into the UK, what would they expect from working in the UK?
Well, obviously, as someone who's never taught out of the UK, I do struggle a little to compare it to other countries. But one thing I will tell you about this country is, obviously, to teach can be quite different from primary to secondary to early years in nursery or to higher education. So if you want to teach it with nursery, with children quite young, you would need a specific qualification in early years to teach in nursery. It seems to be very strict the smaller they are, and then as they get older, it does become a little bit easier for you to get into. So that would be, for nurseries, you would need an early year specific qualification with a QTS. QTS you have to teach. And then in primary schools, you would need a QTS for primary education. And then in secondary schools, to be a teacher, you would again need a QTS and a degree in the specific subject that you're teaching. But in a secondary school, they have other things as well called cover supervisors, which is something quite good, I would say, for people like yourselves that are coming over here, don't have the QTS, even though they'd be fab teachers, they know what they're doing. The qualification is not the same, so it makes it difficult for them to teach. But if you are interested in secondary age children, a cover supervisor is really good, because you do watch the class on your own, you do help the children as best you can, but you don't have to have a specific qualification for it. So obviously, but they are only around in secondary schools. You don't have cover supervisors in primaries, but again, what can say is, there's a lot of teaching assistants in schools as well. So that is something that you can all potentially do to start off as well, just to get into the environment, see what it's like, see if it's something for you. And then obviously, there are ways, which I'm sure you'll ask me, but there are ways that you can convert qualifications as well, which obviously a teaching assistant would be a good way to get into the school to start. And then once you've converted them, which I do actually have 2 people at the moment waiting for their qualifications to be converted. It's not something I do; they do it themselves. So I am waiting for them to get back to me about it. But yeah, they are doing quite like higher teaching assistant level work stuff at the moment until tide's over.
Fantastic. I love that. Now, so what teaching qualifications, you talked about teaching qualifications. What teaching qualifications exactly do you prefer? Because I know some people in my audience will have the PGDE, which is what they have in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Some would have the NCE, the grade 2. Some would have the GSK from Kenya. There's so many different teaching qualifications. So what would you prefer for them to have? Does it have to come with a practicum or, I'll let you explain.
Yeah, well, obviously it would be specifically depending on, like I said, where you want to teach, which age range you want to teach. But the one thing I do say is in the UK, to teach, you have to have a QTS. Qualified teaching status. So obviously, some people, what they'll do is they get a degree in whatever it may be, and then they'll do a PGCE, which takes a year. But these days, PGCs are suitable to teach. But these days, nearly all the qualifications that we do in this country, like my qualification, for example, is a BA Honours in Teaching and Learning Support with QTS. So if you want to teach, your qualification has to have the with QTS on the end. Like, for example, some people in my course specifically, they did the same degree as me, but they didn't do the placement. So at the end, they had a BA Honours in Teaching and Learning Support. That was it. There was no with QTS on the end because they didn't do the placement. So it just means that they are not qualified to teach, but they would be very suitable to be a high level teaching assistant. But we also have, I've been struggling a little bit this morning. I did send a lady from another country into a nursery this morning. And then they said to me, "Oh, is she unqualified?" And I said, "No, she's qualified. She's an overseas trained teacher, is what we put you down as on our system."
Yes.
Some schools will say, "Do you know what? I'm happy with that. Send them in to help cover a class." But some would say, "Does she have QTS?" And if I said no, then they would say, "Oh, it's not suitable for us." So we do usually say to people, we need a QTS to be classed as a teacher on the system. But like I said, you could quite easily be put on the system as an overseas trained teacher or a HLTA. So it can be quite different, as I said. But if you're happy to work with secondary age children, so from 11 to 16 or above, the QTS is less needed, and you can be a cover supervisor, which does actually pay quite well. It's not that different from a teacher. So if you're happy with the older children, a cover supervisor is absolutely fine, and you'd pretty much be doing most of the teaching anyway.
Fantastic. I think I'm going to switch from primary to secondary.
I think secondary schools just don't seem as fussy with who they have, because a cover supervisor technically doesn't plan and doesn't teach. When they go into a class, they're just covering the class so that the teacher will have already left something, but they are still in charge of 30 children, 30 teenagers, may I add. So it's not an easy job. I know. Definitely not for me either. So I think you do still have to be quite confident, and you would need a teacher really. So if you're happy to do older children, that's a good option as well.
Oh, fantastic. I've worked in the early years for 10 years, and I remember when I moved up to Key Stage 1, I thought, what? I don't have to sit on the cover? What have I been doing in the early years for so long? And then when I moved to Key Stage 2, and then obviously the nurturing side of it is less, the planning is more, the marking, increases. You see all the other things that you have to do. With the early years, is more of the planning. It's just, you could plan for 10 hours for just a 10-minute lesson. And the children would take it apart.
One of the reasons teachers should get paid much more than they do.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And the thing I find is secondary teachers always look at early years teachers and think, oh, they just play. No, thank you. We do not just play. We
As a
do so much
qualified
more.
teacher myself, I can tell you now that I find it much easier to go into secondary than I would early years. I always worked in Key Stage 2, so year 3, 4, 5 and
Right.
6. If someone tried to put me in reception, I'd feel very nervous. People think it's an easier option, but it's definitely not.
Obviously, at my school, because it's a private school, we didn't rely on supply teachers that much. So they will always pull one teacher out from maybe a teacher on PPA to cover a teacher who's absent. I remember every time they would send out the covered notes that, we need someone to cover this lesson. And it was the early years, you would find people saying, no, I'm busy, I have a meeting, da 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 da. And the next thing,
Definitely.
everyone would just start typing, Janet, you're the early years specialist. Come on, volunteer. It was funny. Right. So I hear about the 4-year route for teachers who can work in the UK without the QTS. Obviously, they need the QTS to work, but can you just explain this, because my audience would really appreciate this, because obviously they would be coming from their countries without QTS.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if I'm being honest, I don't know much about this.
Okay.
So it's something that I'm sure in the background may possibly be okay if you were getting a job directly with one school and they were hiring you personally. But for me
Yes.
personally, with supply, it just we're very specific. Like, everything has to be extra, which we do. We don't expect anybody else to do.
Yes.
So, like, for example, when you work with us, you have to do a safeguarding course, which we provide. But it's a course that, for example, a school would only make you do once every few years. We would make you do it every year. Your
Right.
DBS that you would have to have in this country for a criminal check, the school would do that for you, and it would last while you're there. For us, it needs to be done every year. Obviously, because we're just sending people in, sometimes for a day, sometimes for a week, sometimes for the year. We do it all, short term, long term. It, it means that we just have to be extra careful. So with us, anything to do with qualifications and things, what we would have to do is, say to schools themselves, this is what we have. This lady, she's actually this. She's got this. Would you be willing to accept this? Some will say yes, some will say no, like I said. And it's something that we would have to ask them. But for us, what we look for, if you say to us you want to teach, as I said, if you don't have the QTS, you wouldn't be able to teach. But we could potentially put you as a higher level teaching assistant, which means that you are okay to actually teach a class, but you would be there when the teacher has her PPA time. So it could be like one afternoon a week. So some schools will come to me and say, I need a HLTA long term. So that just means that they're looking for somebody to cover all the PPA in the school. So they would be teaching an afternoon in one class, a morning in another, the next day an afternoon in one class and another day in another. If you haven't got a QTS, but you are an overseas trained teacher, that could be something that you could do. You could look at it. You would still do the planning, you would still do all those sorts of things, and then you would pass that over to the teacher. So you then would be classed as a teacher. That is something that you could do. But the 4-year visa program for teachers to teach without the QTS, I must say, I'm so sorry, I can't help you as much with that. That'd be something you'd have to do if you got a job directly with a school and not with a supply agency.
Right, which is perfect, because then that way my audience knows where to look and how to go about it. Come in, register as a supply teacher with them, and then see how you can go about getting onto the 4-year route. Maybe if a school likes them, they might be able to stay. Do you think?
Yeah. A friend of mine has done it herself. She was a teaching assistant in a school. I know it's a little bit different, but she was a teaching assistant in the school for a few years. She decided she wanted to be a teacher, so she went to uni. And they loved her so much that they saved the job for her. So when she qualified, they made sure they had a job for her to come back to. So the fact is, in this country at the moment, teachers and teaching assistants, good ones, can be quite difficult to come by. Ones that want to work full time and want to be a full time class teacher. So when they find someone they like, they do snap them up
Hold on
pretty
to them.
quickly. Yes.
So obviously to get onto to come to you, they have to have a quality CV, because what you've told us so far is like gold, prime gold. So how will they get to you? What do they have to have on their CVs to attract you, obviously, before you can send them out to schools?
Yeah. Obviously, if you was to go directly for a job with a school itself, you wouldn't need a CV. You would be asked to fill in their specific application,
Yes.
and every school has a different one. But if you are to come into a supply, yes, we do always say, "Can you send us a CV?" And I must say, there's nothing worse when all I do is look at CVs all day. That's my job. And there's nothing worse when I see a CV than just a big, massive piece of writing. It does need to be split up correctly into the correct sections. So obviously you've got your obvious, you've got your qualifications / education section, and make that very clear. If I need to see the word education somewhere to bring my eye to it straight away.
Yes.
Um, Obviously, if you have whatever scores you've got in this country, for example, if you've got a 2-1, a first, anything like that, that needs to be clear in what qualification it is, where you studied it, which university, where you got it in your education section. Your work history, something that we do struggle with a lot of people sometimes, it has to be the last 10 years. So, for example, say 2 years ago, you had a baby, you started a family, and you had some time off. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just make sure, even something small like that, is on your CV, because if there's a gap from one month to another, we will say, "What were you doing in that month?"
Exactly.
They will ask us as well. So those gaps are really important. If you were job searching, maybe you'd left a job and you were job searching for 2 months, you couldn't find one. Absolutely fine. Just put from this month to this month job searching. That is absolutely fine. So I would say always start off with a little paragraph about yourself. If it's education that you're looking for, make sure you talk about education, what you've done, what you'd like to do, those sorts of things. And then obviously normally straight after the little paragraph to start your personal summary, I would always say just to have your work history first. It's what I'm going to look at first. As soon as I pick up someone's CV, I have a read of that little paragraph to see if I think they'd be suitable. Then I go straight for work history. Where have they worked before? What have they done? It doesn't matter to me if that school is in Nigeria or in Kenya or in Sri Lanka. It doesn't matter to me. But if I see class teacher and I see, that you have been there for a while, I can see the dates. It wasn't just a
Yes.
day. It wasn't just a month. You've been there for a year or
Yes.
two. That makes me happy. And then I go straight from there to the education and think, right, did they have something qualification-wise that I could use, whether it be a TA, HLTA or teacher? And when they have that, and I'm happy with that, it's just making sure that everything is split up so I can read it correctly, and nothing's missed off. And what I would do, don't get me wrong, if there was a gap in your CV and you sent it to me, I have a compliance person who would then ring you up and say, "You've not finished, you've got a gap in your CV," sort of thing, and we can fix it. But obviously, to have that perfect CV to start off, I'm not going to lie, it does give quite a good impression straight away. It does
Yes.
make me say, right, should I ring this person or should I move on to the next one?
Exactly.
And just to see if it's on there. So yeah, they are the main things that I would would like to see on a CV.
Right. I have been harping on about CPDs because nowadays there's free CPDs online. Do you think it's important to have CPDs, and do you prefer if they're recent CPDs, obviously like safeguarding? Because I've worked outside of the UK, I see that some countries are not so particular about CPDs, but because I've worked at British schools, obviously we do the same thing that's done in the UK. We have tons and tons and tons of CPD every year.
Yeah.
And when I explain it to my audience, they go, "What? That many? Why?" So can you shed a little bit of light on that?
Yeah, of course. Well, joining it to the CV, if I look at a CV, sometimes once people have done the qualification and education, they put another section underneath called skills or hobbies or, extra. And if I see a course in there where somebody has done an online course in phonics or done an online course in special needs, which is something that this country is quite high with at the moment, if I see someone's worked on a course of autism, straight away you stand out before somebody else does. And I think, oh, they've done autism, they could work at this school, because they've got quite a lot of autistic children in this school. So it's really good. CPD, you cannot go wrong with it. I do have some people that just do it all day, every day. When they've got time, they think, oh, that course is only a couple of hours online, I'll get it done. They do, but it looks fab. It looks fab on your CV. Under your skills section, it looks amazing. And for example, when you register with us, our payroll company, once you've registered with us and you've got login details from them, there is a section we just have for CPD. So you click the CPD section, you can just see pages and pages of different courses that you can do. So if, for example, you think, do you know what, I'm not actually that good at phonics for the national curriculum for the UK, it'd be really good for me to have a look at that. Have a look, see if there's a phonics one on there. There might be some, well, there's definitely safeguarding, because that is one thing that we have to do. We offer you that free because we cannot get you out without it. So that's like quite a long course. That one is like 4 hours, but it's something that everybody that works in a school in the UK has to do, as you said, and prevent. And FGM, so female genital mutilation, is also something now this year that has come in.
Yes.
Something that has to be done. That particular one doesn't have to be done every year, but it does have to be done at some point, whereas the safeguarding one has to be done every single year.
Yes.
But yes, we have lots of CPD on there, so definitely the more CPD on there, it just shows us that you're really interested in doing this. So much so that you're willing to do extra, and it does look fab.
Fantastic. Right, guys. So you see, you've heard from Rachel, and she's a recruiter of repute. It's not just Janet harping on about CPDs. You must do CPDs, guys. How do we keep ourselves abreast of the current trends in education? If we do not do CPDs, we can't be dinosaurs in the classroom. We cannot take the children into the future that we don't know if we do not prepare ourselves and our minds for those kind of things. And CPDs are wonderful. I sometimes I sort of harp on about CPDs as if they're more important. They're not more important than the qualifications, obviously, but they're really, really important after you've gotten your qualifications. So guys, please, CPDs. It's not just me. It's very, very important you stand out with your CPDs. It shows that you're a continuous learner. And for you to be a continuous learner, it means you can encourage children to be continuous learners themselves. We're mentors at the end of the day, facilitators, and we need to facilitate the way they learn so that their future would be easier for them. We can't predict it, but we can try. Okay. How does one make a good impression when they go in for a supply job? Obviously, I know some schools will ask for teachers to come back. They will obviously tell you, oh, that teacher was really nice. She knew how to handle the children. She knew behavior management, and the children are happy and learning. Can we send them back in? Whereas some people get the, can you send another one next time? So what is it that the first person did that the second person did not do?
I think one thing that I've noticed, especially when I was teaching myself as well, and I can see it now from sending different people into different schools. I can have one person going to a school and a school say, wow, they were amazing. Can I have them next time? And then I'll send this person to a different school and they'll say, never send them back. And I'll say, okay, what did they do wrong? But I know this teacher is fab, but it just didn't fit with that school, I think. So every school, as I said, you walk into a different school, especially on supply, every school will have a different atmosphere. You will either walk in and think, wow, I really like this place, it is for me. And you may walk into another one and think, this is not the way I teach, it just doesn't fit for me. So sometimes what you've got to do as well is try and remember, if someone ever does say to you, don't send them back, don't let it bring you down. And I know this because I once went to school myself and they said, don't send me back. And so I said to my agency, why? What did I do? And apparently I'd left glitter all over the carpet and left it a mess. But we didn't use glitter, we were doing science. So I was just a little bit, do you know what I mean? It could just be one of those things. I think another teaching assistant from another room had left us some glitter with the children, but I had, as the teacher, I should have made sure it was gone.
Yes.
Potentially, I don't know if I don't have a Hoover with me when I'm teaching, but
of course not.
Yeah, but again, that took a long time for me. I thought straight away, oh, I'm terrible, done a bad job. And then after doing this recruitment side of it myself, I can now see that every person that goes into a school is different and every school is different. But what I will say will always make a good impression is, firstly, the way you dress. We don't expect you to, if you're a female or a male, we don't expect you to wear a full-blown suit and tie all the time. Especially not with the little ones. It wouldn't be suitable to run around after little ones with a suit and tie. But it's just about No, you just wouldn't be suitable with it. But whereas a secondary most secondaries would expect a man, for example, to wear a shirt and tie.
Yeah.
But again, as long as you're wearing something casual, smart but casual, that's suitable, no jeans, no trainers, definitely not. And I must say, I have sent a lady in recently that's from, I think she's from Kenya, this lady, and she is actually a teaching assistant. She's not a qualified teacher, but I let her do our teaching assistant course just to give her more confidence. She was so excited, and it was so bad. I felt so bad for her because the school said don't send her back. But when I realised what it was, she'd just come in a hoodie, and she was absolutely lovely. But it's not her fault. She wasn't aware. I should have made sure she was aware that, hoodies and things like that. So it's that first impression. As long as you wear something smart. And
Yes.
again, always make sure that if there's anything you don't know, just ask.
Ask.
Just ask. You can't. No one's going to think you're silly for asking any questions if you want to make sure you're doing it right. Definitely not.
Oh gosh, I had a whole episode where I talked about making a good first impression. And I was talking about as a volunteer, because sometimes I ask people, just go volunteer, go see how you feel, dip your toes in the and see how you feel about teaching. And you find out that it's such a wonderful experience. And in that video, I remember advising everyone that when you go in, make sure you're early. That's the first thing. I had a line manager
The lateness is a thing that's happening a lot recently, I must say. It's not a good impression.
Not a good impression at all. My line manager at the time, I was volunteering, but I remember I used to try and go in 30 minutes early. Obviously, because I'd want to go in, make sure everything was photocopied. I was volunteering, but I was doing it as if I was already part of the staff.
Yeah.
Go in, make sure everything was photocopy was done. I'd have coffee and I'd have a little chatter in the staff room with the teachers, obviously, because I want to leave that impression with them that, she's the kind of person who we can have on the team. And it was really, really good. Obviously, if I'm there working, I should put even more of an effort into making a good impression. And yeah, I love what you said. Make sure you ask. When you're in doubt, just ask. You could, would you recommend
Use your
this?
initiative, isn't it, really, as well? Just use your
Yes,
initiative.
it's about,
But if you're
I
not
know,
sure,
I know. I had a PGCE student in my classroom recently, and I remember saying to her, it's called common sense. Common sense. And it's the reason why it's called common sense is because it's meant to be common. When you come in the morning and you find out that there's children's jumpers all over the floor, just pick them up and put them away, because that way you're making a good impression with me.
yeah,
And if you make a good
definitely.
impression,
And it will
who's
be
the
the head
teacher?
teacher that asks teacher. And they'll say, how did they do?
Exactly. There's always that little, it's not as if I'm doing it maliciously, but I have to give a good report. I have to give an honest report about how she did. And I would say, well, she needs a bit more work, learning how to notice things. And that's what we don't want. We want to be the ones who understand while we're there and what we want to achieve while we're there. So, yes, I've enjoyed this. Is there a word you'd like to leave with my audience today?
Just say, exactly like we were talking about previously, I would just say, try whatever it is that comes up, because you never know what you might see. If a job comes up in teaching assistant, give it a try. You may find that, that school is amazing. And then when you want to teach again, you can go straight for it. You've already been in the school, you know what job it's going to be like. Give it a go. And not only that, with supply is always a fantastic option, because you're not contracted to anything. So if you was working with us on supply, you can do what you want. Say to me, do you know what? I want to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. And I'll say,
Yes.
I'll put you available. We'll put you out for that work. And then if the week after you've gone for a job directly with the school and you want to go, then you just go. So we're here for you if you need us. Happy to send you to schools as a TA, a teacher, welfare, anything you would like. And you are not contracted. So if you want to go for a full-time job anywhere else at any point, you are more than welcome to. Give it a try. You never know.
Fantastic. And are you happy for them to send you CVs? Because I know some of them will want to find out if they can send you CVs. And do you mind if I leave your contact details at the end of this video, like in the description box?
That would be fab, yeah. We can, if you're coming over here and you want any teaching or teaching assistant work, please send me that CV. We'd be more than happy. Unfortunately, like I said, we can't do sponsorship on supply. That would be directly. But if you are coming over here, we would love to have you. We definitely need TAs and teachers here, as many as possible. So yes,
Yes.
please.
The shortages are not. We need to tackle them.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for being here with me today, and thank you so much. I've enjoyed this because it started off like an interview vibe, but then it ended up as if we're just chatting, having coffee, just having a nice little chat. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for watching this. And we hope to see you in the next episode where we shall talk about even more, or maybe I can get her back to talk about any questions that you have. So leave any questions you have in the description, in the comments section below, and she will answer them. I will make sure I get them to her because, like I said, remember, we need more people in this profession. Our future is at stake if the shortages continue. So, yes, thank you so much and have a good week. Bye.